blessed Tuesday to everyone that is entering in, whether you are catching this thing live or on the replay. I pray that you guys woke up in great spirits today. As always, as you guys are coming in, be sure that you guys do me a favor and tell God thank you, and then tell me one thing that you are grateful for on this morning. If you're catching this thing on the replay, please be sure that you hashtag replay crew. That has become a thing, and I enjoy seeing those of you guys that actually come back and say, hey, I'm watching this on the replay. And so I will start. I am grateful today for resolution, for being able to look at areas of my life and being able to see that things are, if not already resolved, on the way to being resolved. And so I want to go ahead and flow into today's daily manna. Let me get my moderators in the room really quickly. Hold on one second. What's going on? Great Samantha, what's up? Grateful for the unexpected. I'm just grateful. Okay, there we go. Grateful for sure for just resolution. And so I want to hop into today's daily manna. I will say this, that today feels a lot lighter. Today feels maybe because I got some rest last night. I don't know. But today definitely does feel a lot lighter. And so listen, where you been at? I ain't seen you in a good little minute. And so we're going to get into today's daily manna. As you guys can see, the title of today's daily manna is A Step in the Right Direction. Today has been a pretty interesting day, or this morning has been, what's up, Visha? Has been a pretty interesting morning. It has been a free-flowing morning, a joyful morning. What's going on, Mayani? What's up, moderators? What's up, y'all? Be sure that you guys are hitting that thumbs up button. It is, I was just going to say, today not T-Day now. T-Days have kind of changed to random days, but yeah, today not T-Day. But anyway, as you guys can see, like today's title is A Step in the Right Direction. I feel like today has been one of those days where even as I've been spending time with God, I've been like looking at certain things, certain areas that have been problematic. And although some areas I'm still waiting on God's resolution to hit, it's like being able to look at my life and see like resolution is on the way. And so I was literally upstairs, just kind of making my rounds, assessing my bird situation, being sure, just assessing it, seeing, are they trying to settle back in? Are they, on their way out? I've just been, just observing just to see what the birds are doing. And I was standing upstairs by the door that leads to the balcony up there. And I remember looking at the situation and looking, and I'm like, okay, it ain't no nest. They're not trying to build no nest. They're not as aggressive. And I heard the Lord say, this is a step in the right direction. And I'm going to just say something. All we need in life to really have hope and to really be, honestly, to really have the wherewithal within ourselves to keep moving forward is to be able to look at our life and see a step in the right direction. Yeah, I'm going to say that again. A lot of times what we don't realize that the thing that can, take us from weary to feeling like we can make it is being able to look at our life and see that things are moving or that things are taking a step in the right direction. I feel like a lot of times we discount, God moving in our life because, I can say it that way, Lord. We discount God moving in our life a lot of times because we attach his faithfulness to a certain outcome. And a lot of times what we don't realize is that hope is needed along the way to getting to your expected end. And a lot of times the thing that does give hope is being able to look at your life and find the God in where you are. But also when you're finding the God in where you are, God will oftentimes show you little signs that show you that positive change is on the way, that your breakthrough is on the way, that, whatever it is you are believing God for is on the way. I remember that there were certain junctures in my wilderness. And for context, my wilderness was a season where I felt hopeless the majority, not the entire 3.5 years, but I felt hopeless a good part of that season because I was attaching God's faithfulness to a certain outcome. And I really was not giving God praise for the small victories. I was not giving God credit or any of that. And so I went throughout that season just feeling like God was not faithful. And if I can be real, it brought me to having many moments where I am contemplating on throwing in the towel and just saying, you know what, God, I am over and done with. And I'm going to just say this, for every person that is fighting a long-standing battle, you know, the thing that determines whether or not you make it out of that battle is being able to look at your life and perceive the signs. And I'm going to just say this, all we really need is a sign. And the signs give us hope that God is about to, that he is who he says he is, and that he is faithful. We can look at the prophet Elijah in the Bible, right? He called for a drought, and then after some years, after some time had passed by, this same prophet calls for rain. People thought that the prophet was crazy because all that they had seen was a drought. The same way many of us struggle that same way. You know, we feel like we are in seasons where there is a drought of God's blessings, a drought of God's increase. And a lot of times we can be for real. Sometimes we do feel like we are in seasons that it just feels like, Lord, I'm not seeing an ounce of progress in these seasons. I'm not seeing anything happen in these seasons. And so sometimes when you're in a season like that, it is so very hard to have those moments where you actually believe God. And I feel like many of us have been at that place recently. Some of y'all are there right now, where maybe you've been waiting so long on God to do a thing, or your life has looked the same for so long that when it comes down to believing that God is going to do X, Y, and Z, sometimes we battle with, I don't think that that's going to happen because I haven't seen it yet. And then we start saying things like, I hope so. I hope so. You know, I hope God does it. Am I making sense? And so, you know, we go back to like the scriptures of the prophet Elijah. And so he sends his servant out to go and look for a sign of rain. I'm going to say that again. He sends his servant out to look for what? A sign. All we need is a sign. And so the servant goes out the first time and he like, yeah, I don't see nothing. Prophet, I don't see not nothing. It still look the same out there. The prophet Elijah don't go back and forth. He says, go back and look for a sign, right? He goes back and he looks for, I feel that. I feel the Holy Spirit. He goes back, right? And he looks for a sign. Come on, somebody. And then he comes back that second time. He like, prophet, still the same. I don't see nothing. And then he goes back the third time, the fourth time. And can you imagine that servant probably felt a lot like us, you know, those of us that are believing and waiting for God to do a thing, where sometimes you go looking for the blessing and you like, I don't see it. Lord, I don't see it. You know, and then God says, look again, and you look again. Let me break it down this way. Let's just say you believe in God for a job. Have you ever felt like, okay, God, I'm believing you for a job, so let me go and try to like look for a job, and then you come back blank, and then God say, look again, and then you like, God, it's still the same jobs that I saw, and then you go back 3, 4, 5, 6, 5, 6 times, 11 dozen times, and you still like, God, it's nothing there. The main thing that we feel is, I don't want to keep doing this. It's not there, right? The main thing that we feel is, I don't want to keep looking because it's not there. We get frustrated and we start to literally feel like it's just busy work. Don't we think that servant probably felt the same way? The prophet is sending him out, several times to go and look for a sign, and he coming back and he like, still nothing. You know how sometimes we be in those seasons and we're believing for God, we're believing for a certain outcome, and it's like, we get our hopes up and then it doesn't happen, and then God says, believe me again, and then it doesn't happen, and then it's just a never-ending battle. And so the prophet Elijah he's doing the same thing to this servant. Go out and look. Why is he telling him to go out and look? Because he knew that God was who he said he was, and he knew that heaven would respond to the words spoken out of his mouth, right? Oh my God, this is good. And so 6th time he goes back. On the 7th time, baby, he goes back. Man, absolutely, my honey. He goes back and he comes back to the prophet. And he says, all I saw was a cloud about the size of my hand. Like, it really wasn't even nothing. Like, it was just, I mean, it's a small change, right? It's a small change. And so the prophet Elijah, like according to the Bible, like he's ecstatic because he knows like this is the sign that I've been waiting for. That come on, that it's about to rain. And on his way running, right, running to tell everybody about it, the Bible says it begins to pour down raining. And all the servants saw was a small step or a small change leading to a step in the right direction. We have to get out of the habit of discounting God or even not giving him the full credit for all the little things that we see happening because he has not done the big thing. A lot of times it is the little things, the little changes that I hear the sound of the abundance of rain. It's the little changes that oftentimes leads to the big changes. The same thing like in my life in every single season, where the wait was extensive, I was having to endure a whole lot of things. Like, baby, it was the same way in all of those moments. And it wasn't a big change that erupted in moments where the season where it was time for God to react. A lot of times it was very small things that happened that allowed me to see like, man, this is a step in the right direction. I remember, wow, you got rained on yesterday. Wow. I remember when it was time for me to move into my apartment. And like, imagine being in a season for 3.5 years and not seeing any evidence, trying countless of times to get it to get your own apartment and to get out of the situation that you're in, only to be met with resistance, only to be met with God not doing it or God not coming through. I remember like I had quit on God because my car had gotten repossessed, and I'm like, you know what, God, I am done. I can't keep going through this. And I remember like going to that apartment. I'm going somewhere with this, going to that apartment, and I applied and I got denied at first. And I remember God saying, you need to actually go up there and you need to like talk to them. And I remember like sitting in that office like no more than like 2 minutes, and the manager comes out and basically she presents an open door for me to move into that apartment. And I remember like, going back home and feeling like this is a sign that I have not seen in all of these 3.5 years. Even when it came down to like getting a vehicle, like, there was something small that happened that had not happened before. And honestly, if I can be for real, the hope that small thing, those small changes gave me, was the thing that equipped me with the faith and the courage to just keep pushing until God did it. And so like today, that was just what God reminded me of. Like I was standing upstairs, looking at the door, looking at the birds, because I like sitting upstairs. I want to sit outside without feeling like a bird is about to attack my head. And I had the thought, like, this is a step in the right direction. And all we need, when you really think about it, is a little bit, is a small change. Because sometimes all it takes is seeing God do something strategic that you ain't never seen done before in all of your time of waiting, to let you know that what God said is about to materialize in your life. And so I say all of that to say, pay very close attention to the little things that happen as you are going throughout this day, the little things that happen in the areas that you are believing God for, because a lot of times it will simply be just like the servant saw, something small that seems insignificant that happens that will let you know, and that will be your confirmation that what you're believing God for, right, is about to like materialize in your life. And so that is today's word, and I just want to just decree and declare over every single person that is watching this, that your life is headed a step in the right direction. I'm going to say it again. Your life is headed a step in the right direction. And so if this was your word, can you do me a favor and tell God thank you? And that is today's word. If you have not already followed us over on YouTube, baby, please be sure that you go ahead and trickle over with us over to YouTube. If you would like to sow, the seed number today is the number 7. Whether you sow in $7, whether you sow in 17, whether you sow in 27, whether you sow in 37, whether you sow in 77, whether you sow in 700, you let God lead you, and you just label this seed a step in the right direction. Your sign is coming. The same way that the sign came for the prophet Elijah, your sign, I'm gonna say it again, your sign is coming. If you would like to sow, you can sow via paypal.me/thoughtsbyT. You can sow via Chime, $thoughtsbyT. You can sow via Zelle, either using ThoughtsbyT Enterprises with an S on the end at gmail.com, or you can use the number 769-281-6840. For those of you guys that would like to sow via Cash App, you absolutely can. $DavisaButler. All of this information is in the description of every single video. If you would like to join our raffle, I'm gonna pull it next month, mid-month in July, just to give a few more people a chance to enter in. It is $5 per entry. If you're sewing for the raffle, all you need to put is a $400 Visa gift card or gift card to your store of your choosing. But all you need to put is the word raffle, $5 per entry. So if you sold 20, that's 4 entries. And put your TikTok name or your name here on YouTube if you're not on TikTok, so that I know how to contact you. And so that is it, y'all. I love y'all. I am rooting for you guys. Sessions are still $35. So if you need that one-on-one time, please don't be afraid to book your session. They're just there to help you move forward in life. And so I will see you guys on TikTok in a few minutes. And so until next time, y'all. Peace.